Welcome to A Healthy Dose. I get excited when I hear about new medical breakthroughs. Every time we can discover new, natural, less invasive, gentler ways to encourage the body to heal, I'm all for it. So when I heard about our guest today and his amazing research using mushrooms to help treat cancers, I had to know more. Dr. William Ranahan is a professor of molecular biology and research director of the Biological Sciences Center at Oral Roberts University. Dr. Ranahan's research has been awarded for the use of mushrooms or mushroom mycelia in the treatment of cancer, a patent from the US. Dr. Ranahan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Now, I went on the website, on the ORU website, and I found a quote from you actually, about the US patent saying, the discovery represents an entirely new way to generate novel cancer therapeutics from a natural source. The complexity of cancer is here matched by nature's own solution. How have you found people respond to this idea of using mushrooms to treat cancer? I mean, cancer is huge, a scary word, and you're suggesting treating it with something we could buy in a grocery store.
Yeah, so the idea here is that you are complicated, that the human body is actually quite complicated, and nature is quite complicated. And so it never made sense to me to try to treat a very complicated disease with a simple synthetic chemical that does one thing, right? So it just makes more sense to me that you would need a complex solution for a complex problem, and nature comes with its own complexity.
Oh, that's so interesting. Like, that's kind of twisting it to me to think that nature is so complex. And you're right. Yeah. And I guess in medicine we kind of like narrow in, and what a novel idea. So I want to backtrack a little bit first and just ask you a little bit about your background. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I am from a little tiny town called Ware, in New Hampshire, and I grew up in the woods and in a log cabin, and very much out there in the middle of nowhere. But we tried to live off the land. We had honeybees, we tapped maple trees, we had vegetable gardens. It was a very close to earth sort of childhood, and I'm grateful for it.
So you were used to being out in nature. You were already used to being involved in growing things and all that.
Yeah. And, you know, like I wasn't really into mushrooms per se, but I understood that the earth produces everything that we need for our health and wholeness. And I had a very healthy childhood, which kind of set me up to tell the difference between foods that are full of chemicals and foods that are just good for you.
So as you said, you weren't necessarily fascinated with mushrooms growing up, but when you were going into your high school years, and tell me there was a change. You expressed earlier that you weren't necessarily going to go into medical at first. What were you thinking?
So growing up on a farm, my dad worked at a brewery. He was kind of a farmer as well. And so my options were really, I was thinking about military. I was thinking, because he was a military guy, my grandfather was in the military, won a Purple Heart. And so I knew that I was raised in a military family, and that would make a lot of sense to me. And I was kind of geared for that. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, I'll just do that. I'll do military. I'll go to Annapolis and I will pursue a military career. And I thought that would be very easy and it'll fit me really well.
So what made you change your mind then? See, being in the military and working with mushrooms for science and cancer, that seems like totally opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. So, when I was finishing high school, I knew I was at a fork in the road. I knew that this was one of those moments in life where your decisions are going to make big impact in your life. And so I took about 2 weeks to pray and fast and just try to get clarity, try to figure out, like, what am I doing with my life? What do I really want to do? And I felt very strongly that I was supposed to go to ORU and to pursue a career in science, and that would culminate in a PhD in biochemistry, molecular biology research. And that direction I got at 18, and I never deviated from it.
Wow, that's powerful that it was so specific. So stay with us, everyone. We're going to be right back and talk more about mushrooms. Research is not easy work. Repeated failures may bring discouragement, and it's not uncommon for a life experience that has hit close to home to be the driving force to keep going when giving up would be easier. Every project starts with inspiration. Dr. Ranahan's research is no different. So, Dr. Ranahan, where did you get your education and what was your major?
So I started undergraduate with just a biology degree at ORU, and then I went on to Indiana University, Purdue University at Indianapolis to get my PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology.
So why cancer? What inspired you to focus on this issue?
Well, I was sort of fascinated with this. It's been called the Emperor of All Maladies. It's sort of a collection of diseases, and I've been told if you live long enough, you'll die of cancer. So I was really curious about this one particular disease state. And when I was in graduate school, my teenage nephew came down with leukemia, and he was just this vibrant, active young man living his best life, and it just decimated him. And if that wasn't bad enough, the chemotherapies that they tried on him, he had massive immune reactions to, and the chemotherapies were actually what caused him to code heart stop done 3 times. And so very dramatic damage done by that. And I thought, I just can't imagine that this is it, that this is the best we have. Couldn't we do better?
Wow. I can't imagine so young and to have it chemo be so intense that it would actually make him code. Tell us about your light bulb moment then that came from teaching about Alexander Fleming's discovery of antibiotics.
So after my PhD, I came back here to teach, and I was teaching about photosynthesis and fungi and ecology and all of that. And I remembered this pretty amazing moment where Alexander Fleming, he won the Nobel Prize in medicine in 1945. And it was sort of an accident. He was a bacteriologist, and so he had bacteria on agar dishes, and a fungal spore landed on the dish and began to kill the bacteria. And that's literally how we discovered antibiotics.
That's incredible. It's just incredible.
Right? Like an accident, And so I'm driving to work one day, and this divine inspiration moment happens where I realized that it was bacteria that revealed the ability of fungi to make antibiotics. So what if cancer cells could reveal the ability of fungi to make anti-cancer compounds? What if you just made them fight it out for space and food and just see if fungi could make novel compounds that could directly and only kill cancer and not the normal tissue? So that was the idea.
Wow. So what was your reaction when you got the US patent? That's a big deal.
Well, the patent really just says that that's a novel idea and that you're legally protected, right? And so that I thought for sure. After what Alexander Fleming did, you would think that everybody would be looking at fungi for producing all kinds of things, but that just wasn't the case. And so we developed a process where you can take fungi and train them and get them to produce novel compounds.
Okay, so there's several types of mushrooms. How in the world do you go, okay, I'm going to choose this one and see what I can do with it?
I am not a mushroom expert, especially when I first started this work. I am not you know what I mean? Like, I didn't even like eating them. I think
that's just hilarious that you didn't even like eating them. You could be called the mushroom man,
So I didn't know. I went to the literature. I looked at all the mushrooms and all the research and all the data, and I was just overwhelmed. And I'm sitting in my office, and I'm just feeling overwhelmed by it. And in comes a student, and she sits down. She said, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm trying to figure out what mushroom we're supposed to study here." And she just looked at me and she said, "I'm named after a mushroom." And I was like, "Shut up, you are not." And her name is Linshi, and that is the Chinese word for reishi, which the Japanese call it reishi, and that's the one we're familiar with. And I just knew, like, that's it. That's the one. We're doing that one. So literally, that's how we picked it.
So simple. Wow. And what type of cancer? How did you choose the type of cancer that you wanted to start with? So you got your
Well, my
mushroom, now the
background-
cancer.
Yeah, my background's in breast cancer research. And so I knew there's a particularly vicious kind of breast cancer. It's called triple negative. There's no chemotherapies for it. It's real bad. And so we just went for that one first, and we found efficacy right out of the gate.
Okay. Well, stay with us. We'll dive into the science behind Dr. Ranahan's research next. Join me now for Science 101 as Dr. Ranahan attempts to make me at least understand how a typical reishi mushroom could turn into a cancer-fighting weapon. Okay, how did you train reishi mushrooms to eat cancer cells? What are their normal food sources? What is a mushroom's metabolic process?
It sounds kind of weird. I admit it sounds weird. But remember, so fungi, they don't have mouths like we do. They're not like plants. They can't make their own food. So whatever food source they're on, they have to figure out how to break it down and then absorb the nutrients back.
Okay, so it's like stealing the nutrients from whatever they're on?
Yeah, they have to not only steal, but they have to break it down. They have to like digest it externally.
Okay.
And so knowing that, we said, okay, well, we'll start them off on the food that they normally like, and then we'll slowly remove that food and begin to introduce them to cancer cells. And within about 6 weeks, we had reishi growing on just cancer cells in an incurable form of breast cancer. And that's how we discovered what we're calling the active ingredient in reishi that kills cancer cells.
Okay, so what is the normal environment that a mushroom would extract from first that you had to change?
Most mushrooms are going to be living on logs, or they're going to be living on decaying plant matter. So they're not like normally living on people or cancer cells or anything like that.
Okay, well so explain to me then in layman's terms the extraction process of taking the mushrooms and getting them to eat this.
Getting them to get the product. Yeah. So normal extraction would be to harvest the mushroom, to dry it out, powderize it, and then put different chemicals on to try to get out your product of interest. We didn't do that. What we do is we grow the live mycelia. So this is the root form of the mushroom. Okay. And we grow that live in the lab, and then we figured out while it's alive how to get it to give us the product. So
that must be difficult, right? If you're trying to keep it alive and still extract
it's a little tricky. Yeah, it's a little tricky, but it's totally doable and scalable. So we've been able to reproducibly get the compound out of reishi that is directly killing cancer, concentrate that, and formulate it.
And within 6 weeks, it was able to eat only cancer cells.
Yeah, it was just living on just cancer cells. So we knew that whatever it was releasing was definitely able to rupture cancer cells so that it could eat. And so we captured that compound. We've tested it on both multiple cancer types and normal tissue. And that's the big deal, is that
that was my next question. If it's going to the biggest thing you're always worried about is if it's going to kill cancer, is it also going to damage the normal tissue?
Yeah, remember my nephew suffered dramatically from chemotherapy, our best efforts, right? So I was really focused on testing this on normal tissue types. So when you put it on normal tissue types, the normal cells eat it like a vitamin. And so their energy levels go up. We directly measure the energy of the cells. In a normal tissue, it goes straight into the cell and the energy goes right up. And they actually have an enhanced vitality of normal tissue. At the same time, the cancer cells, when the compound hits the cancer cells, it ruptures the membrane. It just rips it right open.
It's such a perfect formula. The fact that it'll actually eat only the cancer and then be like a vitamin boost almost to the rest of the tissue. What a wonderful balance between the two.
Isn't that crazy?
It's just crazy. I can't believe you came up with this. Now, I also, before we go, we have another minute here. I want to talk about your other project where you use snake venom, and I thought that was very Interesting. How do you use snake venom and mushrooms?
So one of the fun things I get to do is challenge my students to come up with new ideas, to be open and to pray about it and see what happens, right? So so we know that mushrooms, if you can get them to exchange their genetic material,
Okay.
then they may reproduce. And so we were thinking of all of these medically relevant mushroom species. What if you could like hybridize them and get them to be like super species? And then we found the way to do that is by adding diamondback rattlesnake venom into the media that they're living on, and that facilitates the exchange of the genetic material, which triggers them to grow. And we're trying to come up with new species of mushrooms that we could use for medicine.
Wow, so interesting. Well, stay with us. When we come back, we'll talk about the next steps for this research. It's wonderful to hear of all these positive results in the lab, but what are the next stages of development that need to happen before the public can have access? Like any new treatment, it takes time. So, Dr. Ranahan, when do you go to clinical trials, like phase 1, phase 2?
Yeah, so we are moving as quickly as we can towards clinical trials. We have a phase 1 clinical trial, hopefully starting this summer, maybe even in July. And so that is going to give us information both on potential chemotherapeutic, but also on a dietary supplement. Because Reishi's been eaten for thousands of years as a general medicine. And so if we can make it more potent and put it in a capsule form and regulate the amount of medicine that's in there and get it to be a nutraceutical level, I think that would benefit a ton of people, not just cancer patients.
I think that'd be wonderful. Now, I'm curious to know, because I don't know anything about trials, what does that look like? How do you put together a trial, and how do you arrange the people, and what do you test, and how long does it go for?
Yeah, so in the United States, phase 1 is typically a mouse trial. And so the first thing we want to do is replicate the data that we've been seeing in vitro, in vivo, in live bodies. And so this can help us figure out dosage, concentration, duration, all of the details that can help us ultimately get to a medicine that helps us very effectively based on body type and all of that. So it begins with mice, and then we'll kind of add more, and then eventually go into humans.
Now, how long does that whole process, like, are we talking years before we see anything?
For a pharmaceutical like chemotherapy, yeah, that's going to take multiple years. The phase 1 clinical trial we're starting this summer is a 2-year trial, and we'll have good data after about a year, and then we'll publish and get that out. And but for a pharmaceutical grade, it takes multiple years and a lot of money. So
now, what about the capsule
take
format, the supplement idea? How long does that take? Does it go through the same long process, or is there potential for it to come out sooner?
So that's where I'm very excited, because in the United States, a dietary supplement does not have to go through the same rigorous clinical trials, especially since this is just a natural product that's been eaten for thousands of years. All we're doing is adding an extract back and basically just enhancing the potency of it. So with our phase 1 clinical trial data, that will get us enough to know dosage and duration and all of that. And we're hoping to have a product out that you and I can take for our general health and wellness based on all of the data that we've been looking at. I think it's going to be wildly effective.
So what's the process to create an injectable for cancer treatment?
So a lot of drugs get broken down in our gut. So we can't take them orally. And so a lot of the compounds that we've synthesized are not natural, and so our bodies don't really know what to do with them, and so you lose most of the potency if you take it orally. So we are looking to see if Reishi is in that same category. We just need to know if it's more effective as an oral dose or injected dose. The other thing that we're looking at is whether it can cross the blood-brain barrier. So the first cancer type we're going for is glioblastoma, which is a brain cancer.
Yes.
And
Okay.
incredibly difficult to treat.
Yes, it is.
So basically those two, oral and injected, I'm hoping that we could get it to work just as a pill that you could take, but we don't know until it's in mice and we can really track where it's going to go in the body and its stability.
Now we have 30 seconds here, but I wanted to ask you, your focus has been on natural sources to heal the body, and you've used the term food autonomy. What is your hope for health and wellness?
Again, I believe that everything we need for our health and wellness comes right up out of the ground. And I think we're designed for nature. We're from nature, we're designed for nature. And I think the more we can learn and relearn the foods that we can eat as medicine, then the more control we can have over our own health. Food autonomy for me means you replace your drug cabinet with your refrigerator.
Dr. Ranahan, it's been such a pleasure to speak with you today and such exciting research. I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Every day, scientists are discovering the healing power in nature. Dr. Ranahan's research is a wonderful story of how nature so often provides insight into medical breakthroughs. Medical advancements are increasing, and here on A Healthy Dose, we will continue to share these discoveries. See you next time.